In this video, we're going to talk about the features in the outline group under the data ribbon. We're going to talk about how to group and ungroup data and then also subtotal information. So let's start with grouping. I'm going to move over to this worksheet where we can talk about grouping. And basically what it allows us to do is let your user hide some detail that they may not want to see all the time, and they'll let them do it in a really easy fashion. So for instance, we have 12 months and then we total up the year. Well, maybe we want it so that the user doesn't have to see all 12 months if they're just interested in the yearly information. So what you can do is select those 12 months, and under the data ribbon we have this thing called group, and if you just hit group, it recognizes that you've selected these columns and it puts a 1 and a 2 over here to the left with this minus sign. So that minus sign allows us to collapse that data, and if we want it back again, we hit the plus sign, or we can come over here and hit the 1 and then the 2 will bring the data back. So that's what we can do across columns. You could do the same thing on rows. So for instance, I don't want to see maybe this detail under office costs, so I can just click group. It knows that you selected rows, and now it puts that minus sign so I can just see the word office cost and the subtotal. So again, just a quick way to hide details by hitting a plus or a minus button. Now if I want to get rid of the grouping, I select those rows right there and I can say ungroup, and it did it. Now if I want to get rid of my column grouping, I can hit ungroup. Now if your data is set up right, in which case this purposefully is, I have like a sum function right here and a sum function here, right? So Excel can tell that I'm adding up all this information and summing it, adding up this information here with a sum. So there is a group auto outline. And what it does, it can basically recognize where you have subtotals and totals, and it will auto outline around those things. So when I click on this, boom, now I have minus signs for each of these three areas, and I can collapse them. And of course, I put that one back because we have a sum function here on the year. So Excel's grouped all of that data, and now I can hit the 2 to expand on my rows. I can hit this 2 to expand on that information. And now, can I just hit ungroup? Nope, I got to select some things to ungroup first. So I'll just select everything. And now if I can hit ungroup, let's do the rows first, ungroup, and I'll do the columns second. Now let's go back to the other sheet and explain why we can't auto outline on this sheet. So notice I have employee information from department, their office, when they were hired, and then the salary information. But I don't have any subtotals around like department or office or state. So when I click on group, auto outline is grayed out because it can't recognize where we have totals, that it would know how to outline that. We can still do a manual outline. Notice I have base salary, a bonus, a commission, and all of that totaled up is the wages. So maybe you want to allow your user to hide that detail if they only want to see the wage total. So you can still hit group, and it's going to say, well, you're trying to do the rows or the columns. In this case, I want to do the columns. I hit OK. And now I have this minus. So your user could see the wages. If they want to see the detail of what makes that up, they just hit this plus sign and those three columns come back. So again, I've selected them. I'm now going to ungroup the columns and we'll hit OK. So that's it for grouping and ungrouping. Now let's talk about the subtotal feature. Really handy, but it's grayed out. Why is it grayed out? It does not work on tables. This information is in a table. How do I know that? Because when I click on a single cell, I have a table design ribbon. So I am going to take this out of a table. Now, before I do it, let's talk about what this subtotal is going to allow us to do. Let's say I want to get the sum of the base salary by department and put that information in here. This subtotal button will allow me to do that automatically. It'll put a subtotal right underneath the accounting department and then again underneath the administration department, etc. Now remember, we're just summarizing data. We have several ways of doing it. Subtotal is one. In previous weeks, we've talked about the sum ifs. So notice I have the departments listed over here. I can put parentheses. This thing is called table table 1, square bracket, and what do I want to sum? The base salary. And then the criteria range would be the department, and what department? The accounting department. That is another way of getting subtotals. So right now I'm just showing you a second way to get it done. Here we go. First, I have to remove this from a table. So if I go to table design, I'm going to convert this table to a range, which basically gets rid of the table. So convert to a range, you say yes, and now when I click in here, that table ribbon is gone, and when I go to data, I have subtotal. Now in this case, I want a subtotal by department. So the first thing you have to do is sort on the thing that you want to subtotal on. So just to demonstrate, if I were to have my department not sorted, that would be a problem, and I'll show you why in a second. So step 1, anytime you're doing a subtotal using this feature, is to sort the data on the thing that we're subtotaling, and in this case department. So I'm going to sort A to Z. We're back to being sorted by department. Then I can hit the subtotal button, and it says in this dialog box, at each change in. And that's why we had to sort by department, because that literally means at each change in department. This feature is going to go through this column, and when the department changes, I'm going to hit cancel here. When the department changes from accounting to administration, it will put a subtotal. And then it goes through administration, and when it changes from administration to customer support, it will put a subtotal. Well, guess what happens if you're not sorted by, can't get sorted here, not sorted by department. Remember that each change in department, it would literally put a subtotal right here, and then right here, and then right here, and then here again, and then here's IT again, but it's not smart enough to know, so it would put a subtotal here, right? It literally at each change in department, it would put the subtotal. So it's so important that you remember to sort on the thing that you're subtotaling. So I've sorted again department at each change in department, and now we have some functions. What do we want to do? We can sum, count, average, max, min, product, several different things here. In this case, just to summarize what we did with sum ifs, we will use sum. Now, what do you want to sum? You choose the columns you want to sum. Obviously, they need to have some numeric data in it. So in this case, we were summing the base salary. You can also sum the bonus and the commission and the wages if you want. You can choose more than one. You leave these alone for now. We're going to put the summary data below, and we hit OK. When you use the subtotal feature, it will automatically do this outlining for us. And so I'm going to scroll down, and at the end of accounting, because remember, each change in department, accounting changes right here to administration, we are going to sum, and I selected several. Now notice it didn't sum these 3 because I didn't select those, but it did all the salary, bonus, commissions, and wages right here. And it would do it again, administration. When it changed from administration to customer support, we got a subtotal. If you just want to see the subtotals, you can collapse all the data by hitting the 2, and now I have the totals. If you want to see some information around, let's say, the IT department, I can hit the plus just on that one. It'll expand, but the rest will be collapsed. You can then hit the minus to collapse it again, or the 2 button. If you just want to see the grand total, you hit 1, and there's your 2, and then 3 is all the data. If you want to get rid of the subtotals when you're all done, let's say you've collected that information and you're good, right? And which, by the way, you can copy and paste this just to another location. But for now, let's just say you see that information. You don't need the subtotals anymore. You want to remove them. So just click anywhere in the data, and under subtotal, there's a remove all button. So you click on that, and now you're back to it's not outlined, and if you scroll down, you don't have any other information. Now you can have multiple subtotals. So let's say I'm going to change up the situation. I want a subtotal by office, and then within the office department. So I want a subtotal of the department within each office, right? So I want a subtotal accounting within the Boston office, and then accounting within the San Francisco office, and then accounting within the Denver office. So I'm going to say it, I want a subtotal by office by department, which means before you can subtotal, I need to sort on that. So in other words, I need to sort by office, and then within office, the department. Step one, the most important step, and it's the one students leave off all the time. I don't know how to get you to understand that or to make that happen, but you have to sort first. So in this case, sort by department. Oops, it was supposed to be by office. Office, where's office? By office, and then add level by department. So we're just going to do A to Z in both situations. We hit OK. Here is Boston, and now here are the departments within Boston, right? So if we scroll down far enough, IT, marketing, sales, and now here we go to Chicago and all of the departments. So now we're going to subtotal twice. First, we're going to subtotal on the office, then we will subtotal on the department. So, and that's important. You have to do it in that order. So here we go. We're going to subtotal. Now this time, what did I just say? We're going to subtotal an office first. So at each change in the office, so when the office goes from Boston to Chicago to Dallas, at each time it changes, we're going to do a subtotal. So go back to data, subtotal, at each change in the office. Boom. What do we want to subtotal? Well, maybe just to be different, we could leave those checked. I want to take an average of our eval score. So let's just take an average of the eval score by office, and everything looks good. We hit OK. So now when I click on 2, there is all of our offices, and we have an average of our eval score. Okay, but now we want to do that by department by office. So we have the office piece done. So the second subtotal, I'm going to click on subtotal. This time at each change in department, use the average function for the eval score. So we're going to leave that alone, but here's the important part. Don't replace the current subtotals. We want to leave them there, the Boston ones, right, the office ones. And now we're going to add one for the department. So I hit OK. Notice we have 1, 2, 3 over here. When I hit OK, boom, it adds a 4th level. Because the reason is here's my Boston office, and then within that I have all of the departments. So now I have the eval scores. I'm going to go ahead and make that a number, or what do I want? 2 decimals. So let's get rid of some decimals. There we go. So now I have that eval score for every department within Boston, and here's the Boston average. And then I can do the same thing again for the accounting within the accounting, or within the Chicago area. That's 2 subtotals. Again, we could do this with functions. It would have been a average ifs, where we would have averaged this if the department was accounting and the office was Boston. We could get that same information using formulas. This is it. Now, if I hit the 2, we get our office average. If I hit the 3, we get the office with the department. And then, of course, if I hit 4, it expands all the information. And if you don't want it anymore, we go to data, subtotal, remove all. Boom. Entire subtotal row will be deleted. Hit OK. You can't change part of an array. Normally that would work. I think what happened is I have something going on over here, and because it this thing's an array we haven't really talked about yet, but anyway, it can't delete this row because it was affecting that array. So normally remove all would work as long as you don't have something over here. Remember, this isn't a table anymore. So it does look at all the information to the right of the data, and that is what's goofing that up. But in any case, we're done with subtotals.